there, and welcome to our next installment here of Gear Up for Giving, sponsored by the Case Foundation and our friends at C3 Communications, the Goldhurst Foundation, and Flip Video. I'm Kari Saratovsky, and I am thrilled to be here with Beth Kanter today. As many of you know, and are frequent readers of Beth's blog, she is a social media guru and has been for many years, and leading efforts really as a leading champion and voice for the nonprofit sector when it comes to social media. So we are so thrilled to have Beth with us today. As you know, for those of you who have tuned in before, we're here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We've been here for the last month. We actually have our last session on Thursday with Sarah Koch from Causes, who will be answering all of your questions about Causes on Facebook and how to utilize that platform. And of course, we're here because we're gearing up for America's Giving Challenge. And America's Giving Challenge is officially launching next week, October 7th. So make sure that you're getting your troops ready to participate in that and for the opportunity to win $50,000 for your cause. So you'll be learning much more about that on the Case Foundation site. Of course, Sarah will be answering your questions related to causes on Thursday. But today we're going to have another kind of broad-reaching session with Beth. And she'll be taking all of your social media, your nonprofit social media questions. And so you can start sending those our way, although many of you already have. We've received many emails and tweets and also questions via Beth's blog that she posted on our site earlier this week. So if you have not sent in your questions yet, of course you can participate in the chat that's happening just below your screen. You can also email us at gearup@casefoundation.org. And finally, if you're already on Twitter, go ahead and tweet your questions. Just use the hashtag #AGC.
Oh, I'm going to go look.
So Beth's here on her computer, and I've got my computer here, and we're ready to go. I wanted to just start off by having you, Beth, just say a few words about some of the trends that you're seeing in social media adoption by nonprofits right now, and some of the things that you're seeing, and just get us warmed up here, and then we'll jump into questions. So go ahead and make sure you're tweeting them and chatting them below. Thanks so much.
Great. In terms of trends, I mean, it's really has a great opportunity to kind of look back, because I know I've been blogging since, I don't know, 2002, I think I started my first blog. And then I was
pioneers, right?
and started Beth's blog in 2003, and really started blogging, I think, around 2005, when I really was able to make a commitment to daily blogging. And what I've seen is it's great to have more voices. You know, it's sort of fun to be an early adopter or even an innovator, but it's lonely.
Sure.
And so I think
many people are joining you now. Which
yes.
is
Or so we say, I think we're beginning to cross the chasm. Of course, there's still a lot of organizations who are just getting started and some who are thinking about getting started. So, but we're seeing a more even distribution of people looking at it. And what I'm excited about that, because I see that there'll be more best practices for us to share with one another, and many more examples.
Terrific.
And lots of learning opportunities,
right,
with peers.
Right. No, absolutely. So I think we'll jump into things here, if that's all right with you.
I better push my panic button. See, that's my panic button.
We've got all kinds of props lined up here, so you guys are in for a treat today. So I guess let's start with this question of time. And you know, so many nonprofits are really stretched right now, and they have a lot of competing priorities. So we have one organization that sent in an email saying, I have a small staff. How do I find the resources to keep up to date with content on social networks? And then how do I just manage our time and our presence here?
Well, okay, that's a really great question. And actually, I've just given away my timeout timer.
Oh.
So when I started, I used to get really distracted because I didn't have a set workflow. And Facebook and all these things can be clamoring and chiming, and before you know it, you haven't accomplished the task that you needed to do. Right. So a couple of years ago, I borrowed my kid's timeout timer, and I really structured my time on social networks so I could, you know, and my tasks. I put a sticky note right up on my monitor on what I was going to accomplish, and then I would, you know, accomplish those. And if the bell went off, then I stopped and went to the next task. So
you are that disciplined.
Yes, yeah.
It's
probably
impressive.
less now, but and also that's a great way to learn, because in the beginning you're kind of feeling what your workflow is. And often I run experiments. A lot of my experiments are not to raise a lot of money per se, but the first experiments were, how much time is this going to take me, and what is the most efficient workflow? And there was another part to that question about small staff resources and keeping up with everything.
Exactly.
So yeah, with a small staff, I think you really need to be selective in how you're going to engage, and it's better to engage deeply in fewer places than being all around the map. So you want to really carefully choose where you're going to engage. I think there's a great opportunity with working with interns and volunteers, but you can't just throw it to them and say, take care of it. You really have to engage them in your organization's mission and goals and programs, so they have some understanding, and you need to kind of work with them. And it's a great opportunity for cross-mentoring if you're kind of new to this technology.
Which also brings up this interesting point of this cross-generational dialogue that seems to be happening. So while you have interns that are coming on board and they're very excited about social media, you may have a CEO or executive staff that's a little bit more weary. So how do you balance some of that? What are some of the most effective ways that you've seen some of that cross-generational stuff happening? But also, who should own it in the end? Do you have real thoughts or opinions on who should own the social media strategy in an organization?
Well, first of all, let's get to the first piece, which is cross-generational mentoring. And I think it works best. The way I've seen it work best is when there's a team approach, and that so that the senior manager is comfortable that the less experienced staff or volunteers or interns can speak well on behalf of the organization, is making good decisions. And so I think that they go into this with a learning approach.
Sure.
That there isn't, a mistake is not bad.
Right.
This is a opportunity for us to, okay, so you need some talking points here, or you need this tool, or for the intern to actually explain, so this is how Facebook works. So if you go into it without having specific outcomes at first, besides learning and learning how to work together and how to become more comfortable, that's a really good thing to do for a couple weeks or even a couple months in the beginning.
Sure. And then in terms of who should actually own?
Well, I think the organization should own it, and everyone in the organization, but I know that's a big leap.
It is.
So often it begins in the marketing department, or it may begin in the fundraising department, but then it needs to spread.
Okay, terrific. I think you've written a bit about this on Beth's blog, but what are the 3 or 4 questions that organizations should ask themselves before diving into social media? And this came in a question via email as well. But so what are some of the guiding principles that you have, or some of the key questions that folks should ask?
Okay, that was such a great question. I really appreciated that. And this morning, I actually answered that question on the blog post.
There you go.
And I was happy because I was typing, and I think much better through my fingers. And I won't go for my props, but and I thought this is a great chance to think about some new beginning questions. So here they are. Let me find them. They probably didn't even. Oh, here we are. I would ask: is your organization ready to be a learning organization? That is, value mistakes as opportunities to learn and improve what you're doing. I think that's an important discussion to have. Does your leadership understand the potential value, and are they willing to invest in low-risk experimentations?
Right.
Are they willing to not say upfront, "Show me the money"? Can you articulate a clear set of reasonable starter goals that might incorporate some learning? So a goal, instead of raising X amount of dollars, might be to figure out how much time this is going to take me to do.
Right.
And can we do it this efficiently?
Right.
Or is our audience here? And what are they saying about us? Or what are some of the phrases they use? And can you shape and identify a beginner starter project that doesn't take too much time and that relates up to your goals?
Right.
And I think what happens is that we get too complex in the beginning, and we add on all this stuff, and we're going to accomplish all this stuff, but just bear it down to its most simplistic, easy, getting started kind of goal.
Okay.
And I guess finally, I know that you said 3 or 4, but I have 5.
You know what? Five is a nice round number.
Right.
We've been asking for 5, and people come up with 3. So you have 5. Go
are you really ready to engage and have a conversation with your audience and start building relationships rather than just talking to them?
Right. No, those are very helpful. And in case you didn't catch all of those, you can actually, Beth has posted those on as a response on her blog post. So on the Case Foundation's homepage, you can check that out. There's actually a follow-up question from chat that came up just recently. It says, we dived into social media without doing any listening work. How do we regroup now?
Okay.
Okay, Beth is getting out the props.
Okay,
so.
okay. Can I be silly?
Please
This
do.
is the only way I can do this on camera. Okay. I'm making this up. Okay. No, I'm not going to use that. Okay. So, all right. So here's your fish, and you just dived in. Okay. So. First thing I would do if I did that, and I've done that, so you're not the only one, is like dive back out and sit for a while. And did you learn anything from just diving in? You know, maybe you didn't see some immediate results, but what did you learn from? Did people respond to you? You know, if you just threw up a Facebook page, were people joining your Facebook page? What did you do to get them to join that worked? Or were they posting things on the Facebook page? You know, and maybe you put it up and no one came and there's nothing there, so you know that's an important learning that you need to do something.
Right.
So you want to start listening, and I actually have a whole wiki that has some starter projects on it, but the first thing you want to start to do is set up a listening post. So I don't know how big the organization is, but maybe you want to bring a small group of people together and start brainstorming some of your keywords, because that's the essential part of listening. Keywords are just simple phrases. They could be your executive director's name, your organization's name, your tagline, your organization's URL. So those are the kinds of things that you're going to start with your simple listening post. And then you can go, and I have all the tools linked up, and you can even go to wearemedia.org into the listening section. And then they're basically like Google for the social media space. So you're typing in keywords, and it creates something called an RSS feed, but you don't need to worry about that. You just know that it makes it easy for you to just continually have that search going out there, so you don't have to go back to Google. And then you want to get really familiar with a tool called an RSS reader, and add those feeds into your reader, and then make a daily habit of reading those, or a weekly habit. And the important thing there is to, I think, to at least once a week, or depending on your volume, summarize what you're seeing. You know, what are the phrases that are coming up? Are they positive, neutral, or negative? And are there things that surprised you? Don't start to respond yet, but just maybe, you know, if someone's written a blog post about your issue or organization, you know, see who else has commented, follow the links, you know, and do that for about 30 days. And then you can kind of shift over to beginning to sort of let people know that you're there.
You're there,
Yeah, you can start at first you're following ant trails, and then you're starting to pick things up, and then you're starting to interact.
Sure. I think that's helpful. It's kind of a helpful process to go through, and to kind of take that time to take a step back. And to really listen and to go through that. So.
And I think the biggest thing that people are concerned with the listening piece is that, oh my God, it's going to be drinking from the fire hydrant. There's going to be all this information. I'm going to get, you know, information overload. Okay, but you can be zen about it, okay? Very zen. You don't have to read everything. You don't have to follow every word. Just pick like 3 things that are the most important. And understand that the fog will lift after the first couple weeks. At first it's going to seem weird. You're going to have that sense of vertigo, but then you're going to know what keywords you need, and then you just zero in on those.
Right. Terrific, and terrific use of props. This is working out well. So a couple of follow-ups that have been coming through via the chat. The first one is actually with regard to the generational differences. Does reverse mentoring actually work? So does younger interns, volunteers, training board members, for example, is that something that we've seen actually work when it comes to social media?
Well, board members. Okay. Well, I've done reverse mentoring with people. I'm in my 50s, and I've reverse mentored people in their 80s and 90s. So yes, you can do it, but also it helps if you know somebody. It's not just all younger people who use these tools. There are some old people like me. I've started an old fogies club. There are boomers on there. There are, quote, older people. Well, I don't think I'm old, but
you're not.
So maybe
we dress alike, so I mean, it's all good.
So maybe you can find somebody who is a peer of someone on your board or of your leadership and have some one-on-one coaching.
Great.
I think that's really important.
Yeah. Another question here from the chat. We have 4,000 email newsletter subscribers. Is it a bad idea to invite all 4,000 of them to follow us with Twitter's Find People? Do you know much about how Find People works on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm just one of these people that likes to build my networks one at a time.
Yeah.
I really like to know who's following me. So, and that's the way that you really build a network. It's based on relationships, not kind of
just
blasting.
a blanket.
It's not all just numbers. So maybe you want to do maybe you want to look through some of those people. Maybe you want to start actually with putting something in your email newsletter about join us on Twitter if you're interested, and see if people take you up. Do a small test, maybe go through that list and see if you know people who may already be on Twitter.
Great.
I just think that they join, and then what?
Right.
And then you have a lot. Then it's hard. Makes it hard to scale that relationship building and that engagement piece, which is really, really the secret sauce to success. The secret sauce to success: engagement, relationship building, and of course metrics.
Right. So I want to switch back over to the email questions that have come in. This one says that our social media efforts are happening in a lot of different places. How do I cohesively tie these efforts together, and is it important to do so? And I think, Beth, you've done an incredible job of taking people from your blog to your Facebook page to your Twitter. So how would you suggest organizations kind of tie those things together, and do you think that's important?
It is important. It's tied together by your goals and your metrics. Kind of what is it that you want to achieve? And so think about that first. Think about how all these different channels really support that overall goal, and also think of them as channels that can be woven. I know that not everybody on Facebook necessarily follows me on Twitter. There are some overlaps, yes. Yeah. So because of that, I don't automatically spew my Twitter onto my Facebook profile. Or onto my fan page. I kind of pick and choose. Each one of these channels has developed its own kind of personality in terms of a community. So I have slightly different ways that I talk to people on my fan page than I do on Twitter.
Okay.
And I stay away from. I automate very selectively. There are ways that you can automate feeds to feed content from one place to another, and then there are ways that you can do it manually that don't take a lot of time, and that I say are artfully selectful. I actually answered this one, and so I thought of some more questions. So go through all your social media activity. So like make an inventory right now, like put it in a spreadsheet, and go through and ask yourself. Is this strategic? Is it supporting our goals? Are we engaging people and building relationships, or is it random and helter-skelter?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Then a couple of points. Are you strategically and artfully cross-pollinating? So it's like this idea of being what I call a network weaver. So you're weaving between networks with your content or with your conversations. So, like for example, on my fan page on Facebook, I don't stream my entire blog post,
right?
Because the goal of my Facebook really is it's a listening post actually, and it's a big focus group. I call it my Facebook focus group, and there I want to learn about what questions are people asking about their fan pages or their Facebook presence. What information can they share, and are there any best practices? And I ask a lot of questions there because I'm still learning on Facebook. Believe me. So I don't automatically stream all of my content that comes from my blog because I write much broader. So I just share one-ups. It's very easy with a question, and I look at the insight tool on Facebook fan pages to make sure that I'm getting responses. So I have a sense of what types of things that I should share there, both in content and format. So the other thing that you should definitely tie together is your overall web presence.
Yes.
So I'm amazed. I do a lot of when I prep for a training, I go out and I look at every participant's webpage, and I try to see what their social media activity is. When I try to follow their ant trails, and I'm amazed to find how many stick their Facebook badge at the bottom of the page, or don't even have it up there. So, and some have it up there in a very artfully kind of integrated way, and others don't. So think about that. Also, I know when I put my Facebook fan page badge on my blog in a very prominent place, it helped people find it and they joined. that was a long-winded way of saying that. So,
No, very, very helpful. So thank you. I want to turn back to the chat. This one is kind of interesting, and I think that a lot of organizations face this. So when you find no reviews or comments on your pages or links, could this mean you're not reaching your target audience? And what do you do?
you mean on your Facebook page?
I think.
Is that what they're saying?
I think that they're saying more broadly on, if people aren't participating in the conversation on your blog or, although you're on chat, so go ahead and if you can clarify if you're talking about Facebook or generally, but how, how should organizations react to that? I know that it takes a while, especially if you have a blog, it takes a while for people to comment and to get comfortable and to kind of get into a groove, and a lot of that is posting things on other people's blogs and kind of reciprocating. So how do you best suggest that organizations go about building that conversation?
Wow, that's a great question. I remember the first time, I started blogging early on, and I had several blogs, and one of them wasn't my professional blog. It was all about Cambodia, and I was blogging to learn about Cambodia culture.
Right.
And I remember I was just blogging away. I didn't even know that people, in 2000, I didn't realize about comments, so I didn't know what I was missing.
Right.
And all of a sudden somebody left a comment, and it was a Cambodian, and it was like, wow. Somebody, but it was a couple months, and so then I followed up with a comment, and it's like you won't. It's not immediate gratification. You have to build it. So there is the writing. If it's a blog, you're looking at how you're writing. Are you leaving room for people to join that conversation?
Right.
Like, are you asking questions? Are you writing shorter posts? Are you linking to a lot of other people? And then there's this kind of, with blogging, you're kind of being an ambassador or an evangelist. You're going to other people and you're participating in other people's parties.
Right.
Not just, don't think of it that you have to have everyone come to your place. On Facebook, like with the fan pages, I closely look at, I use the Insight tool, and I check how many people have liked this, how many people have left comments, and I experiment with that. Was this a photo? Did I tag somebody on this?
Right.
What kind of description did I write?
Right.
How did the link show up? I do a lot of testing to see what gets responses, and then I adjust.
That's helpful. And actually, so there's a follow-up question that came in via email about this idea between Facebook. Should nonprofits ask their Facebook supporters to join both as a cause member and as a fan, or just use one approach? Is it worth the extra effort generating entirely different content for both causes and fan pages? So you've experimented with a little bit of that recently. So what do you find?
I think you should integrate. And you should try to, because of course you want. I think of the fan page as kind of if you think of it as in terms of the ladder of engagement, that the fan page is might be more to get people just becoming aware of you and joining and getting engaged, and then you want to get them over to causes when they're ready, to donate.
Right.
So think of it as the ladder of engagement.
Okay.
First step, and there are ways to. I have a post someplace that you can put a customized tab on your fan page that links to your cause, and certainly you can have a link if you on your fan page if you've gotten the normal URL in words, you can put a link on your causes page someplace, and you can even talk about it.
Right. No, that's helpful. And for those of you who are joining us a little bit late, I mentioned that Sarah Koch from Causes on Facebook is going to be with us on Thursday, same time, same place, and she'll be taking a lot of the questions that have come in really specific to Facebook and Facebook causes and how to leverage those tools. So you can continue to send those in, and we'll definitely kind of keep those for Sarah. So from chat, where can I find demographic data on users of different social media venues?
Oh, you just talked about one of my absolute favorite topics.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Data geek.
Data geek. I use a program called Delicious, which is a social bookmarking site, and I have a tag called Research Snippets, I think, and so anything that I find, I bookmark with that tag. So you'll find if you and you can subscribe to it with an RSS feed, so you don't get information overload. If you like a link person, now if you are a visual person like I am, I also read those studies and I take screen captures of what I think is the most insightful finding, and I put them in my Flickr stream. So as you can see, there's pages and pages of visuals.
Right.
So you can find that under social media market research snippets on my Flickr stream.
Okay.
Which I will put into. I put it out into Twitter as we multitask.
There you go.
And also, if you follow me on my Facebook profile, that you will you'll see the picture from Flickr be posted automatically. That's one that I automatically post.
Right.
Because I find that my audience, like me, are visual people.
Right. That's terrific. And we'll make sure, I know that Beth has been spitting out some different URLs and addresses, so we'll make sure that we follow up and post those both via Twitter and then also as addendums to the blog post from earlier this week. So in case you're not catching all of those, we'll try to catch some of them in the chat and then send those out via other ways. So this, let's see, from chat, I am president of an Town Education Foundation. We want to find alumni, etc. How do we start on social media sites? We have no presence currently, no newsletter, email. So these folks are really just starting off. So how can they best find folks that should be part of their network?
Okay, so two things. So the first thing is start to go on Facebook and just start searching. You know, I was surprised that there is a network established for my high school.
Yeah.
And even my elementary school.
Right.
So go and check to see if there's already networks in places. You know, go with your individual profile. And actually, you can actually make this as a great organizational task. You know, set up a committee of people who are comfortable doing this. And you each set up your personal profile and do some research on Twitter, on Flickr. I mean, I'm sorry, on Facebook.
That's okay. That's all right.
On Facebook, and so do keyword searches on your institution, and then come back together and reflect on what you found and what you learned. So that's one step. And the second step, I thought about. You said we don't have an email newsletter.
Right. I don't have any of that. Yeah.
You want to remember what I call the rule of thirds. That you know, the social media stuff is fantastic. I love it. I've had all the Kool-Aid, so I'm going to tell you to go do it.
Right.
But you know, you want to think of that roughly 1/3. You want to have 1/3 outbound communication, your email marketing, and your search engine optimization, and then you want your web presence. You want a home base to bring them back to.
Okay.
So
very helpful. So another question that came via chat, and I don't know how much you're going to be able to comment about this. I know it's ahead of the curve to talk about Google Wave for the nonprofit world now, but why do nonprofits always seem to be trying to play catch up? So, this is a question of, you know, specific to the Google Wave tool, but I don't know how much you know about Google Wave. I think that the broader question here is, you know, what are we seeing? I mean, and why does it seem like nonprofits do you feel as though nonprofits are late to the table, or how do they stay ahead of the curve?
Well, I think, you know, again, let's go back to the adoption curve. Moore's adoption curve, and it looks like a bell curve. It looks like, and so we have our innovators. Okay,
Right.
There's a small number of them. Okay, and so they're like out here. They're probably, the nonprofit innovators are probably already on Google Wave, but it's a small amount. Then there's like this little chasm, you know, where there's mean fish and sharks. And then it starts to cross the chasm and we get the early adopters. So, and that's a slightly bigger group than the other ones, but it's still not the majority of nonprofits. And then there's another chasm, and this one's bigger. And that's the one between early adopters and early mainstream. So we have that part of it. And then we have actually get to the middle of the curve. And then we have the late mainstream, and then we have the laggards.
Okay.
So, of course, if you're using Google Wave, you're probably one of the innovators starting to get into being an early adopter. So you're probably saying, where are those laggards?
Right.
And it's going to take them 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
You know, there is a benefit to being an early adopter. There's a benefit to being an innovator, but there's also a benefit to being early mainstream and late. And the benefits to being an early adopter is that if it takes off, you're there first.
Right.
But if you're a laggard or whatever, you come in when it's no longer the Wild West and there are established best practices. You may not have as many dramatic results, but it's less risk.
Okay. So this next question is coming from chat, and you've had some great experience with online fundraising. The chat question says the old giving campaign model allowed organizations to target audiences based on previous donations and responses. Should organizations track info about followers and friends on Twitter and Facebook to learn those interests, or how should people start building up that? Because it's not the traditional model of just finding folks that have donated in the past, but you're finding new donors.
Right. Well, I like what Joe Green, how he talks about it. He talks about that the shift in the model, that it's now a marketplace and not a set trail right into your organization. So you have to start looking for people who are interested in your particular issue area. Now there's an evolving set of software. I've just started to play with it. It's called Social CRM, which is contact relationship management software, which you may know there's already existing. It's basically your database online, your fundraising database.
Sure. A lot of nonprofits are using Salesforce right now.
And I know Salesforce has a sort of social component, and there are other programs that integrate that. So for example, I use a couple of software. I'm experimenting right now. I haven't decided which one I'm going to go with, and I'm kind of different because I'm more like a small nonprofit versus a big nonprofit. And so what I have, I pull in all my contacts and Twitter, and I manually had to put them in from Facebook, and I can automatically import them from other sources. And once I have them in there, I can look up Kari, and I can see what's on your Twitter stream, what's on your Facebook. And then I can start tagging with keywords, and then when I want to reach out to people, I have set groups.
Okay.
So it's kind of like TweetDeck on steroids.
Right. But really a way to kind of manage or to track what people's interests are and where they're focused.
Right. And the last time I had an interaction with them and being able to follow up.
Okay.
So I'm not just collecting business cards and dumping them on my desk.
Right.
Which I still do. But now I scan it and get it into my social CRM.
Perfect. So from chat, and this chat has been so rich, so thank you for everybody who who continues to write. We're trying to get to as many of these as possible. We've got about half an hour left. So from chat, listen to a presentation once that said social media should always point users back to your website. Is this true? Is it still true? Can a Facebook page kind of supplement for that, or what would you say should drive? Where should you drive people?
I drive people to other people's sites.
And that's very generous of you.
Well, that's how you build a network. It's
Right.
reciprocity.
Sure.
I have 2 Twitter profiles. I have one that is mine, which is @Kanter, and that's where I talk, and that's where I had the most followers, even though that I don't really care about that metric. And then I have another one called Beth Kanter, and that's my evil, link-loving, spewing evil twin.
Right.
And she just has a Twitter feed that posts tweets that are links to other people who've linked to me.
Okay.
So seriously, the answer to that is it depends on what your goal is and what you want to accomplish.
Sure.
And sometimes, and I think eventually it becomes intermingled. Because when I drive people back to, I don't usually drive them, but when they come because they're curious and I build a relationship back to my Facebook page, they can find my blog because the link is there.
Right. Very helpful. So this is the next question from chat. Do you have guidelines for deciding how to set up an organizational account? Should it be anonymous organizational face or a certain person from the organization representing it? So if you're an organization, a nonprofit, and you have a Facebook presence, should it be one person that manages that? Should multiple people have access to that account, or how should it be in one voice? What would you?
Well, there's 3 or 4 different options.
Right.
And we know what they are. And I analyzed this for Twitter, so it was kind of like you can have the institutional branded voice.
Right.
It's just the institution. There's no humanity there. There's no person there. Or you can have a branded institution, but that person who managed it has a personality.
Right.
There's signs of life there, or it could be several people. Or you could have a person who's as an individual, but they're clearly identified with their organization, so it's a professional profile. So I definitely have a bias towards the one in the middle, because I think that's the most effective.
Hybrid.
The hybrid, but I also think that it works really well when you have other people on staff who can professionally represent your organization. And that's how you scale.
This is very true. That's very true. What applications would you suggest to use for tracking links that are hosted in social networks?
Well, I use Google Analytics because I can run a report and I can see what my referrals are, where the audience is coming from, and it'll track that. And then when I share links, like on Twitter, I use Bitly.
Just to condense and to make it shorter.
And I sort of scan. There's actually another one called Tweet Effect that actually it measures how many followers you lost or gained based on a tweet.
Right.
For example, I know that if I just tweet a response to somebody and I don't give any context or a link, people don't like that. So I try not to do that.
That makes sense. So you have written a lot about this idea of return on investments, and everybody, I had so many emails that came in with regard to that question. How do you measure, how should organizations measure their effectiveness of social media? Is traffic to the website enough? What are some of those metrics, and how should folks really make the case to their CEO, to their board, whatever?
Okay, so after you've done what you're supposed to do in the beginning for 6 months or so, maybe 6 to 18 months, doing your experimentation and tracking soft kind of metrics around learning. How much time does it take you, and is this where our audience is? Then you're moving into the area of you're actually measuring engagement. So you're looking at all the relationship-y things and interaction things. So comments on your blog, using the Insight tool on Facebook to see how many people like it or how many people are commenting. And then you want to look at conversion,
right?
Which is this kind of which could be translating into traffic, names on your email list, dollars, and then of course there's the ultimate, which is like real world results, social change, behavior change, and what the social media strategy is contributing to that.
Okay.
For example, I always think about Planned Parenthood, and they have this fantastic little widget that they have on their Facebook profile, and somebody can go in and look up the location of a center. They have all of them listed, and they can actually track how many people have gotten into the doors as a result of that.
Very cool. This one, just for fun, to break up from chat. Did you guys coordinate your outfits? And believe it or not, we didn't. It's a little bit bizarre. We walked in, but thanks for asking.
We match your BlackBerry, right?
Yes, exactly. So do you have? So let's move on to the chat. Well, that's leaving us. No.
I'm getting some more prompts.
Okay, terrific. Do you have examples of websites or organizations with artfully placed platform badges? So I guess our folks, who's doing a really good job of making badges that drive people to.
Okay, there's Facebook pages specifically. Look at Planned Parenthood site. I think they're doing a really good job. Look at Red Cross. Look at Wildlife Federation. And I actually have a list on my wiki, bethkanter.wikispaces.com, and you look, and it'll say the large list of nonprofit web and blog presence.
Right.
So start clicking through those. I think I actually asterisked a few that I thought were really good.
Okay.
So that's one place to go. And the other point I wanted to make with that is, if you go to my fan page, which is it's facebook.com/beth.kanter.blog, as opposed from beth.kanter, which is my personal profile.
Okay.
And you haven't joined, you'll see my splash page. I have a customized splash page that was done in Sprout, and it has a very clear call to action on why you should join the page, and it's well designed.
No, it is, and you just recently launched that, right?
No, I did a slow kind of launch in July.
Okay.
And what I did over the last couple of days, as you can see my little notes here, I was testing the refer your friends to see what that would do.
Okay, terrific. So let's see. Also from chat. Is there a way to learn whether or not your audience on these networks is the same? So he or she says, I suppose there's always the good old Excel spreadsheet, but are there any programs that can help us better know our audience and how much overlap there is?
Why do you want to know that?
Well, I'm not sure. This isn't my question.
Oh, but I want to know why. So how are you going to use the information?
How are you going to use the information? And then we'll get back to that question.
But let's do. I actually have like 3 books
Okay.
that I want to do book giveaways, and I think
Good.
we should drive comments to your blog.
Terrific.
first,
Yeah.
And then I can pick some from there.
Okay.
So the first one is, these are all friends of mine, and I'm writing a book too, so I'm hoping they'll return the favor.
That's
so
great.
This is Twitterville, and there's actually a section on chapter 11 called Goodwill Fundraising.
Perfect.
So
And Twitterville's written by
Shell Israel, at Shell Israel on Twitter. So let's put this up here. And if you're on Twitter right now, let Shell Israel know, at Shell Israel. Kanter's giving away a copy of Twitterville because there's a Goodwill fundraising chapter. I've already given away like 17 copies of this. What happened for his book launch, a bunch of his fans donated books to let me give away to help nonprofits.
Great.
So do that. My second is Chris Brogan.
Yes.
And Julian Smith's trust agent. Frank Barry wrote a great piece on my blog not too long ago called How to Be a Nonprofit Trust Agent. And I embedded a giveaway, but you had to really read the post. And so I just published something this week from Dayton Children's Hospital about how they're a trust agent. And there's a couple of reviews out there, one on nonprofits, about nonprofits.com, and Kiwi LaRoe Miller wrote a review recently. So if you want to try to win a copy of this, leave a comment on the Case Foundation blog post.
Great.
For trust agents, and if you're on Twitter, let at Chris Brogan know that I'm giving away a copy of this blog.
Perfect.
And this last one is very special. It's called Digital Habitats. And it's by Etienne Wenger, Nancy Smith, and Nancy White and John Smith. They'll laugh about that. But this is more about like online communities of practice and how you can do learning across your field in a networked way. And it's also, I think, great for those of you who are working as a field already, who want to coordinate your social media strategies together.
Great.
So these are some ways you can do that sort of to share learning. So I have 3 books to give away.
Terrific. So, and those books could be yours if you leave a comment on the post that Beth wrote on the Case Foundation blog, and leave a comment. What should the comments just?
Why you want the particular book.
Okay.
So we have Digital Habitats, and that's about communities of practice. We have Trust Agents from Chris Brogan, and we have Twitterville, which has the Goodwill fundraising chapter.
Terrific. So go ahead and make sure that you are commenting, and we will choose 3 winners at the end of the day. So.
Great.
So getting back here to the chat. Actually, let's go ahead and take one from email. How important is it for nonprofits to monitor their brand? Everybody's asking, okay, what if they say something bad about us? What do we do, and how, what are the actions we should take? So, how important is it for folks to get ahead of that, or to?
It's essential.
Okay.
It's incredibly important because I think as we're more connected, people are out there talking, and if you're not like tracking and enjoying that conversation, you're going to become irrelevant. I'll say that really strongly.
Right.
If you're not at least listening, at least if you're not at the minimum having a Google alert on your organization's name, you're going to be in big trouble in a few years. I'll be bold and say that. So you really, really need to be monitoring your brand for sentiment, volume, and tone.
And another question.
Oh, I want to also follow up the bad comments. Those are gifts in disguise because it's, they're going to be saying bad things anyway, but at least you'll be able to hear it and you'll be able to correct it, whether it's a perception or there is something to be improved with your program.
Sure. No, that's very true. So a question with regard to directives around social media in organizations. So more and more organizations are kind of saying, okay, we have a presence, we have a lot of employees who are online and who are using social media, and some of them have this hybrid of representing the organization and representing themselves and their personalities. So how important is it for organizations to have guidelines and social media standards, I guess, of sorts?
Well, the cat's out of the bag and you need a policy, but you may already have a lot of the issues that come up may already be covered in your human resources policies, in your acceptable technology use policies, and professional conduct policies. Those are pretty much larger organizations that have those kinds of formal policies. I mean, if you have 30 or 40 people on staff and up, you probably have them already. Right. So maybe it's pulling those out and taking a look at whether or not you need to insert the word social media in there. And then it's also really good to have some just general guidelines about whether you want to encourage people to be your ambassador.
Right.
And giving people those bullet points, giving them more of an operational set of guidelines.
Very, very helpful.
And I have actually a post on my blog called, if you go to my blog and search for don't moon anybody with a camera, or at least hide your face while you do it. That's a post that I wrote about the operational side of policies. And then another one called the Pooch Porch Policy, which is a compilation and links to different social media policies from nonprofits as well as government and corporate. And then also over on Mashable, I saw it a couple weeks ago, they did a post summarizing 80 different social media policies.
Yes.
But it's not just a cut and paste thing.
Right.
You really need to sit and have that conversation.
So this is an interesting. It's so also from the chat, our organizational leadership now wants to expand our social media presence. They recognize its potential for fundraising and relationship building, but how should I manage their expectations? And I think managing expectations in the social media realm is very important. You've got a CEO that says, okay, well, you put a cause on Facebook, why don't we have $1 million? So how do you set those expectations?
Well, as we've been saying, is to go show them what the ladder of engagement is, and then show them what the ladder of results are, and show that over time. I actually have a great visual in my Flickr feed about going up. One side is the amount of time that you've been on a social media network and the amount of learning and interaction that you've done, and somewhere around here is where the money starts to come in. And I think feeding them along with giving them updates, giving them reports, and while the campaign or whatever you're doing is unfolding, rather than at the end.
Okay. You have had some really great success with online fundraising, and as we start preparing for America's Giving Challenge, which launches next week, October 7th, what are some tips that you have for effective online fundraising strategies?
The whole thing is hopefully everyone has built their network before they need it, because that's the most important thing. Is that your first touch with people shouldn't be with your hand out.
Right. Perfect prop.
Show me the money. That's really important. Storytelling is really important, and you need to have a storytelling strategy, and that's around what is the impact, or what is the result of this money? What is the individual story that you can tell? What are the stories around your supporters that you can tell to show momentum? And what is it that the stories around why people really like your organization or your cause? The other thing is, again, this sort of ladder of engagement, in that you're bringing people on, and cultivating them, and saying thank you is really important, in fun and creative ways, making people feel special.
And do you have any of those fun, creative ways that you've used in the past?
Many, from videos to writing with humor and posts. Sending personalized thank you notes, handwritten,
not via email, like actually,
postcards.
That's terrific. So
my hand hurt, and many people on our board and volunteers believe in that,
Right, and they appreciate that. I mean, that really that form of engagement is becoming less and less. So I think that personal touch is really important. So here's a question from an organization that's going to be rebranding within the next 6 months or so. Do you have any recommendations about how to best make the transition and get the most out of this opportunity as they begin to rebrand?
That's a good one. I'm thinking about that they should go to Kiwi LaRoe Miller's blog, because she has a couple of really good posts just on that topic.
Okay, and the name again, Kiwi?
Yeah, she's the nonprofit marketing blog, and also, while I'm on it, Getting Attention blog. Both of them write about that topic in great depth.
Okay, terrific.
And that's where I would go look.
Great, and that's Nancy Schwartz.
Nancy Schwartz and Kiwi LaRoe Miller.
Great, terrific. Goodness, so many good chat questions. So, where to go? You get props while I look here. So how do you balance management oversight and the lengthy time it takes for management approval with the need to respond to conversation in real time? That's great. And then the need to respond in real time, but also the unpredictable nature of social media. So,
wow, that is a great conversation. Yeah. I mean, a great question. I think that you need to give the people who are on the front lines and in the trenches, they need to be equipped and they need to have the trust to be able to respond, because it can backfire on you if you don't respond. I would think that there might be a larger management issue if the person on the front lines has to have every single thing approved.
Right.
And there isn't a set of like bullet points and a sense of knowing what they can approve. And I know that there's a lot of sort of top-down command and control kind of approaches to communications, and I think that there needs to be some kind of discussion around the kind of conversational discussion way that social media, that sort of the social life of content and messaging that happens.
Right.
I actually have a framework that I posted on my blog, I think this would be a good tool if that's what this issue is about. It takes you through, it came from Red Pen 21 blog, and it shows your audience, what your communications objective is, and then think about what your content and messaging point is, and then think about how you can respond in a conversational way. What's a question that you can ask, and then what are some follow-up prompts and content that you can point people to.
Great suggestions. This question has also come up quite a bit via emails. So this question of it's no longer should organizations be using social media? It's, we've kind of moved beyond should we or shouldn't we be there. Pretty much all in agreement that you should be. But what do you see as the future here for nonprofits in particular and their use of social media? Where are things going, and how do we, how are organizations able to kind of move beyond this cause fatigue and social media fatigue that's happening, and really kind of stay focused on their mission, but also use these tools as...
That's a really good question. In fact, I'm doing a keynote with the New Media Consortium, and it's all on futuring and what does the sense of connectedness mean for the nonprofit sector? So what does the nonprofit of 2020 look like? I probably won't answer that right now, but I think where we're going, maybe the 2010, 2012, is instead of it just being in the marketing department or the fundraising department or just one person, that it really has to permeate the whole organization, and that you need to look at it in terms of being more open, being more transparent, and actually getting feedback and crowdsourcing for program development and for actual social change. And this whole idea that like just silos and boundaries and fences are probably going to melt a little bit more, not only within the organization but also out in the whole field. And working together less as isolated islands, but more as kind of colonies around specific causes.
Very helpful. So Beth, we are coming up toward the end of our time here and the end of the hour. So one last push. Well, one thing is that on the right side of your screen, you'll see an opportunity to tell us how we're doing, give us a little bit of feedback, let us know how these sessions have been, and you can win a chance to win a flip video camera as well as $250 for your cause. So go ahead and fill that out. Another just quick promotion for the three books, the giveaway. If you so the first one, Twitterville, Trust Agents, and the final one, Digital Habitats. We'll be giving those away if you leave a comment on the Case Foundation site. Beth has a post up there on our homepage right now about listening. So go ahead and let us know why you're interested in those books or one of those books, and we'll go ahead and choose one by the end of the day and let you know. And finally, the Case Foundation is gearing up for America's Giving Challenge, and so we really hope that this past month that you've been tuning in to these sessions, that they've been helpful and that they can help you as you think about your online giving strategy moving toward the challenge, and that you'll be able to use some of the things that you've learned and heard from gurus like Beth If you have missed any of the sessions, all of them are available on the Case Foundation site, so you can find those, the history of them and tune in. And we've actually divided them up by subject, so you can go right to a question that you thought was particularly interesting and listen to that soundbite. So that's something else that we're doing. But I want to, Beth, I want to give you kind of the last word here to just take us out and any final words for the nonprofits that have been tuning in and asking their questions. Final bit of advice or something to leave them with.
Yes.
Good. I thought you'd have
if you're traveling to a different country, especially a developing country, it's a whole different other culture. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're going to do your due diligence as to I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to insult anybody, by wearing a sleeveless shirt or sitting down when I should be standing. Mm-hmm. And then, you could actually go into that experience by getting really worried about it and freaked out. Oh my God, what if I make a mistake? What if I insult somebody? But when it comes down to it, those are your best teachers. Mm-hmm. You are going to make mistakes, but you're going to learn from it and it's going to improve. So go out there, embrace what you can do and embrace anything that isn't perfect as a chance to learn and improve.
Mm-hmm. Terrific. Well, we truly appreciate your great guidance throughout this and particularly throughout the last hour. So thank you so much to Beth. To those of you who have stuck with us here, make sure that you tune in on Thursday. Sarah Koch from Causes on Facebook will be answering all of your questions. And also Causes is going to be launching a series of webinars in October that really help folks focus on America's Giving Challenge. So you can find out more about those and see the dates on our site as well. And Beth, thanks so much. And
great. Bye-bye.
All right. Taking us out. Thank you.